Welcome to another episode of Paul Was Right, but he wishes he wasn't. This time, it's about North Korea, right? The workers' paradise, which, of course, like all workers' paradises, has a large proportion of forced labor camps, has announced, or publicly, it's been revealed that they indeed have deployed up to 10,000 troops to fight on Russia's behalf in Ukraine. This is an insane escalation of the war, and we have to talk about this. Okay, so this is some of the evidence that we've gathered so far that this is really happening. The first of which is a video that was taken inside a Russian facility, and you can see here what the caption was purportedly that these are North Korean soldiers receiving Russian standard issue gear. Now, this makes a lot of sense because, of course, Russia has their biggest constraint right now is manpower. It's not necessarily equipment. Their other biggest constraint is super high-tech gear. It's not individual equipment. So these are North Korean soldiers receiving. If you've ever been in the military, you know exactly what this is like. You get a extremely standard kit of gear, and it's issued to you, right? You could see some of the Russian logistics troops are there trying to pack up these boxes, but these guys are just going through a receiving line, getting all their gear, and you can see they look, frankly, exactly like any other army soldiers. But what's important, right? There's also footage purportedly of them training, North Korean troops training in Russia. Again, if you've deployed, you know what all of this looks like, right? This looks very familiar. And what's troubling is that if you've deployed, it looks familiar, right? Which means that what? This is a professional military with not weeks of training as the current Russian military has received, but likely months of training and possibly even years of active service. So you're talking about a very high caliber of soldier. Despite the fact that North Korean training is kind of notoriously performative, and the poor resources of the North Koreans mean that their training isn't necessarily at a high level, these are still professional soldiers that wake up and go to bed, and between those two periods, spend the whole time being soldiers. And that is bad news for Ukraine, right? Who, remember, Russia and Ukraine had two professional armies. They fought each other, and in this war of attrition have ground each other down to nubs. So now you're getting a fresh injection of 10,000 fresh troops. And this is probably just a warm-up round, right? Kim Jong-un is right now sending these troops in as likely part of a sort of trial balloon to see if this service delivers real value, delivers battle-hardened troops. I suspect he may actually have plans. These may be troops on a fixed deployment schedule where they say, you're going to go, this formation is going to serve 12 months. They're going to rotate back to North Korea and begin to train additional troops to prepare for this, while another batch of 10,000 or maybe even more rotate into the country. So you can see here they're training, again, for the unique aspects of this war. There's likely Russian trainers that are supervising this. And as we've talked about on this channel ad nauseum, that in this war, walking along these roads in a file is the only way to travel, really, because of the extensive mining. If the lead man hasn't hit a mine, you want to follow the lead man's path as much as possible. So they're training for that, right? Notice they have good spacing. Again, this is something that you don't see from regular Russian troops. You maybe see it from very good Russian troops in footage occasionally, but you almost never see this caliber of spacing in a platoon-sized element. So again, these North Koreans looking very, very good. Again, okay, it looks like they're cutting back to the same footage, but there's also additional footage. Let's see if we can find it right here. This is purportedly of a training ground in North Korea where, again, you're seeing a simulated Ukrainian village that looks quite frankly pretty real, and you can see them navigating an obstacle course, sort of moving through, again, like an obstacle course in a simulated Ukrainian village. Or it's actually possible that this is a real Ukrainian village that the Russians have taken over, right? We've heard a lot of reports that the North Koreans are training in occupied Ukraine right now. And I would not be surprised in the least. So this, again, is likely, this is more evidence pointing to the North Korean military, again, deploying to Ukraine, right? Confirmation that, not confirmation, right? Confirmation would be if literally you saw like North Korean flags and stuff. But the people who submitted this video said they're North Koreans. They appear to be North Korean. They certainly have the build of professional soldiers, something that we have not seen. And they have the age range. That's the other thing. Russia's recruited much, much older. The average Russian recruit now is around 50 years old. These all look like men in their 20s, which would align with North Korea's conscription policies. Now, we're going to talk about the U.S. and NATO reactions to this because it is just a huge deal. I cannot emphasize how big this is. But before we talk about that, of course, if you feel like you're the Russian military and you're running with the energy of a frankly middle-aged alcoholic, you might need a little extra caffeine. That's why I created Strike Gum, right? I created it literally inspired by my time in Afghanistan, when if I wanted energy on a long combat patrol, I needed to chug an energy drink. And if you've ever had to carry an energy drink in your assault pack and then drink it in the desert heat, it's awful, dude. So this is the superior solution. It's zero sugar, made in the USA, veteran owned, 90 milligrams of caffeine in every piece. One piece of this contains all the caffeine of a Red Bull. So if you're looking for the real energy drink alternative, right, leave energy drinks behind. That's some 2010 shit, right? Get into the 2020s, get into the 21st century, strikegum.com, or go to Amazon and just search Strike Gum. You'll notice that we are the highest rated energy gum on Amazon because it's a no-brainer. So check it out. Links in the description. Okay. So right away, I think Michael Turner from Ohio, this is this is a Republican, by the way, who has written an open letter to President Biden. And this is a huge deal, right? When you release these kind of public letters, you're doing so to, right? This is somebody who can get in touch with the White House. He's a ranking member of the House Intelligence Committee, but he's writing this letter to emphasize how important he finds this. And he says, "Dear President Biden, according to news reports at the North Atlantic Treaty Organization headquarters yesterday, Zelensky said he knows of the 10,000 North Korean soldiers prepared to start fighting against Ukrainians. This is very urgent." And Zelensky said, "I spoke to the United States about it with all their leadership." And he confirms that Ukrainian and South Korean intelligence officials say that this is happening, that the troops this month are on Russian naval vessels, and it looks like they're quite a bit closer than that. He says, hey, the White House hasn't briefed the House Intelligence Committee and Armed Services Committee of any of this, any of these troop movements. He says, if true, this is the important part, they are alarming and an extreme escalation of this conflict. They require an immediate response from the United States and our NATO allies to avoid a widening conflict. North Korean troops either attacking Ukraine from Russian territory or entering into Ukrainian territory must be a red line for the United States and NATO. Your administration must make this absolutely clear and unequivocal. Due to the urgency of this matter, I want an immediate classified briefing concerning the possible engagement of North Korean troops in a potentially escalating and broadening Ukraine conflict. This, to me, is fascinating because the Republican candidate for president says that he doesn't want to help Ukraine, that helping Ukraine is a waste of time, Ukraine is a loser, the war needs to end as fast as possible. But here is the House Intelligence Committee chair saying, who is also in the same party, who says, this is crazy. This is a huge escalation, guys. And he's right. This is a third party who is now having troops in combat in Ukraine, right? And again, we've watched the gradual, and Russia sits there and says, oh, well, it's dangerous escalation that we give Ukraine some money to help pay for their government services, that we give them our old military equipment so they can continue to defend themselves. And the crazy part is that Mr. Escalation, oh, this is escalatory, we don't know what's going to happen. Putin loves to call every single stinking thing that NATO does an escalation. And yet, he's bringing in a third country, an entire other combatant, right? People are like, oh, this could be a dangerous widening of the war. No. This isn't could be. A dangerous widening of the war has happened. It's not a risk. The escalation has occurred. Do you like it? This is the delusion that I think the U.S. defense establishment operates under. We live in this world where there could be a dangerous escalation. And for 2 years, the U.S. has stopped itself short of providing Ukraine war-winning weapons and war-winning support, right? We've slow-walked deep strike weapons, right? It took us years to get ATACMS, HIMARS, cluster munitions, all things that are essential to the Ukrainian defense now, only after Russia has adapted to them, right? It's like the Russian invasion is like a cancer, right, on Ukraine. And the one way to make sure that your cancer always comes back is to half-ass the treatments, right? If you slow walk a therapy, right? If you just sort of trickle it in, right? The cancer has time to learn and adapt and grow and become immune to those treatments, right? Just like an infection, right? If you give half an antibiotic dose, the infection's going to learn to work around it. And that's what Russia has consistently done. As new technologies are slowly added to the battlefield, the Russian military has adapted. They've changed their tactics. They've changed their troops. They've changed their recruitment. They've changed the structure of their military to adapt to that world. And now they are harder to eliminate than ever. And now you've got a situation where all that experience that they have is going to get transferred to another enemy of the West, an enemy of democracy, someone who hates the idea that there's a free democratic society that's more prosperous just to their south. And so all this effort that the US and the West and NATO have gone through to stop escalation didn't mean shit. It didn't mean a goddamn thing. Because the North Koreans are here, the conflict has spread. There are now two belligerents. And what's NATO going to do about it? Like, this is the thing that bothers me. I'm sorry. De-escalation, containment of the conflict, it has failed, right? That process has failed. And it is failed because Putin's intentions are fundamentally misread. It is because NATO believed that Putin viewed this as a casual war of choice, as using his military to just lever Ukraine to be a little more friendly, and not seeing what Putin himself says his goal is. Putin himself is the one who sat down across from Tucker Carlson when Tucker Carlson was like, was this about deterring NATO? Was this because you felt encircled and trapped? And Putin said, no, it is because I want to see the Russian state expanded to all people I think it should rule, including Ukrainians, including Estonians, including Latvians, including everybody who used to be under Tsarist Russia. And Putin spent literally 45 minutes explaining to Tucker Carlson why he thinks this, and still everyone at NATO headquarters is like, well, maybe Putin just wants to find a way to get out of this war and keep it and win an election. Guys, he's Putin. He doesn't need to win elections. So the question we're now stuck with, now that we've screwed the pooch and allowed Putin to escalate at his timeline, escalate the conflict when he wants to. Now NATO's stuck, and it goes, we can lose, and we can create an alliance of dictators with the tactics and ability, right? Because what do you think? What do you think is the other side of this equation? Just take a guess on how you think this agreement's going to work. Do you think Kim Jong-un is going to send his army to help Russia beat Ukraine? And then when they beat the shit out of Ukraine because they're ganging up on the country, what do you think that combined military force that has now trained together, operates with the same equipment, fights with the same tactics, what exactly do you think they're going to do with that? Do you think they're going to high-five each other? Go back to playing Call of Duty? Right? Get some wins in Fortnite together? No, dude. They're going to set their sights on the next most important target. Likely South Korea, maybe their friend China will have them link up and take Taiwan, right? There's a playbook now. If they win, two of the most notoriously dictatorial countries in the world are going to have a playbook to beat Western equipment and tactics. And they can do it because they don't give a shit about casualties, because they don't have to deal with the public. They oppress people. They don't have elections. They don't have to deal with uncomfortable casualty numbers. They just pretend they don't exist. So Will NATO get off its ass and actually confront this reality? Probably not. Probably not. If from what we've seen, again, if there's one thing NATO and the West have proven consistently, it's that they labor under these delusions that dictators are just misunderstood friends, just a friend we haven't gotten through to yet. Kim Jong-un, we'll be besties. They're not. That's not how this works. Their worldview is incompatible with democracy, and it's obvious why. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. I wish I had some better news. I don't. I'll keep you posted, though. Subscribe. This information, it helps us all, right? See the world as it is. Thanks to Martin Baum, Chris Rossi, Stuart Abel, Daniel Brown, Sergei Zinchenko, Chris Holmes, Chris Gorsuch, Daniel M., and Ida Skycall. Thanks to Lieutenant tier members, and I will see you guys in the next one. Cheers.